today's topic. It's going to be birth control and how you can protect birth control on this election year. So let me invite Dr. Yen and then we can discuss that in detail. All right, initiating the invite. Sophia Yen, and in 1 second she will hop on. But just a little brief on the topic of our live today. It's a very important year. It's the election year, and your voice definitely matters. It's really important to protect things such as birth control and what it means to help reproductive rights in your state or even this country. Now, reproductive rights are very, very important, as I'm sure we all know. But today we're going to get into exactly why it's important, why it matters, the social, economic, and political factors that makes birth control worth protecting. Okay, I see that Dr. Sophia Yen has joined. I believe she should be able to start collaborating. Okay, 1 minute. Oh, um, accept. Okay. Um, we'll just wait a little bit more before she joins on. Okay, there she is. Hi, Dr. Yen. Oh my God, it's so nice to see you, as always. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm really, really good. Yeah, I was just telling your viewers that this one's a bit heavier than our other topics today, but I feel like it was a really important thing to talk about because things like this, birth control in the election year, it's really worth talking about because if your lives has had a positive impact because of birth control, then yeah, I would think that it's a good topic to talk about, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I'm really excited to see Rose Horowitz joined us, and as well as Foodie Nikki. Rose is quite a politico.
Awesome. Woo! Okay, I have also been prepared with notes today that I'll be, if I look down, viewers just know that I'm refreshing up on notes to like walk us through this and everything. So yeah, let's first understand the stakes of birth control and our axis in this election year. So why does birth control matter and what makes birth control worth protecting? Did you want to start us off on any key points, Dr. Yen?
Yes. So, number one, without birth control, I like to say who would have graduated high school, college, medical school, residency, fellowship, as well as law school, grad school, and only with the advent of birth control have women be able to increase our numbers in all of these higher education fields. And certainly people were able to do it ahead of time. However, it makes it a lot easier when you don't have to worry about getting pregnant or have a child. So kudos to anyone who had a child along the way, but it's a lot easier to do it without a child. And I went through undergrad, med school, residency, fellowship, and then popped out 2 kids. And if I'd had kids along the way, it just would have made it a lot harder. So birth control is really important in my mind for those of us with uteruses to achieve educational as well as employment parity. And then the other part is that birth control is used for more than just birth control. As we've, expressed here at Pandia Health, you can use it for #periods optional because the number one cause of missed work and school under the age of 25 is bad, evil periods, heavy, painful, anemia, rolling on the ground kind of periods affect some women so badly that they have to miss work and school. And so without birth control, which is hormonal treatment, then these women wouldn't be able to function as well. And then it's also used for PCOS as well as endometriosis. And PCOS affects about 1 in 10 women. Endometriosis affects about 1 in 10 women. If you take away birth control, which is generally the combined estrogen progesterone pill, but also patch ring, then what will these women use? You can't just take away a whole category of drugs. So these politicians are playing politics with women's lives, women's health, women's education, women's livelihood. And we cannot allow people who believe they need to interfere in science and medicine to be elected officials.
Yeah. I really like especially that last part you said where politicians are playing around with like things that are so essential to womanhood, especially because I feel like birth control affects such a big part of it influences gender equality. And birth control really affects gender equality because it allows women to family plan, pursue the education, like as you said. And I think that in turn really affects our economic political state because if women are allowed to go to college, graduate, and get these degrees, they're in turn like fueling the economy. And so not only if you take away birth control, you're taking away family planning and all these other sources, but it can have a very serious impact on not only our society, but the economic climate too.
Yes, and we're seeing, very radical candidates surface, particularly of one party than the other. And in North Carolina, there's somebody who's up for governor, and he thinks he would like to go back to the time when women couldn't vote. I mean, that is scary that he was already elected attorney general, I believe, or assistant governor, and now he's up for governor. The fact that such a person can still be in office to me is unacceptable. You're going to take away my right to vote. You're going to turn me into a literally second class citizen. Just so insane.
I know. When I heard about that, I was mortified actually. And it's already been so crazy because in the previous years, the right to seek out medical coverage when it comes to having children got severely reduced in terms of abortion rights and all this. Like we recently had a post for our viewers. We have a series called like what the hell's going on with, and we say each state, so like Texas and Alabama and such like that, and what is truly going on in there, because there's these rules and regulations where womanhood, it makes women feel feared just if they happen to have something to them and they have to seek out of state resources. And that's can be such a scary and daunting feeling when not only does it feel like you should not be carrying a child, but the society around you is really rejecting this notion and really making you fearful for doing this. It's like a psychological torture along with like these rules and regulations. So I'm glad that we're talking about this today because it's such a huge topic, and I feel like so many lives have been at stake because of this.
And I hear, a lot of people are upset at many different activities that are happening in the politics. But and some people are like, I'm not going to vote for Biden. He needs to be punished, for what's happening in Gaza. But you have to look at the other side, that by not voting, you're allowing this person who has been convicted of rape, I believe, in a court of law, become president. When I met with a bunch of students the day after that original election that got that person in office, women just were in tears because they were suffering, post-traumatic stress disorder, or just what the heck does it mean when a person says you should just grab them by the pussy is president? Yeah. What does that say to the world that we have given this person the strongest power in the nation? And so if you can't vote for Biden, at least vote against Trump.
Yes, I agree. And especially here, I noted during my research that the Affordable Care Act and the otherwise known as the ACA, it was like mandated that most health insurance plan covered contraceptive methods without cost sharing. So this really ensures that out-of-pocket cost and expenses for many individuals didn't need to happen. So this made like a lot of contraceptives very easily accessible. However, during the Trump administration, it allowed a lot of employers and universities to opt out of this. So it left many people left without contraceptive care. And with that in turn, contraceptive care isn't just like, I don't know, like candy at a cafeteria or something. It's not like a little extra thing. It's a necessity for many people. And without it, our economy, as I said earlier, our social impact is very severely affected. And I can't believe this was even allowed in the first place.
Yeah. No, we need to thank Obama, Biden, who passed the Affordable Care Act, who made sure it was included that any FDA-approved birth control for those of us with uteri that's written by a physician is available with no copay, no deductible. what has Biden done for you? He gave you that. What has the other person done? So many things that are demoralizing to women, and it's just horrifying out there. Take him for his word. Take him for what he's saying he will do. And anything you think that Biden has done poorly, imagine what it would be under Trump.
I know. And look at this. Okay. So there's also another one called Title X funding changes, and it's also another loss for us. It says Title X is a federal program that provides funding for family planning services. So, the works include birth control to low income and uninsured individuals. So, this is like a lot of agencies use Title X as well. And in 2019, the Trump administration implemented changes to Title X regulations, commonly referred to as the domestic gag rule, which prohibited Title X clinics from referring patients for abortion services and placed additional restrictions on providers. These changes resulted in the withdrawal of funding from numerous reproductive health clinics, such as Planned Parenthood, reducing access to affordable birth control for many vulnerable populations. And I just want to speak on that issue because I, for one, was low income, like growing up, and I had to seek out agencies such as Planned Parenthood to help me along, and I just felt very feared knowing a scenario where I did not have that control and option on my bodily autonomy in my life. If that was suddenly taken away from me and I could not afford it, then I don't think I would be in the same situation where I was today. Could you imagine a young Sophia Yen in her college years or something like that, and like trying to figure out life and not having these resources? I think that would be really scary.
No, that's one of the main reasons I went into medicine. So I was a pre-med student running pregnancy tests at Planned Parenthood and giving people the results. And I ran a test for a 13-year-old and it came back positive. And I was like, do you want to continue the pregnancy? Do you want to continue and give it up for adoption? Or do you want to terminate it? And she's like, I'm going to continue it. And I was like, wow, what different paths our lives are going to make. And certainly, I didn't follow up where she went, but she was going to have a lot harder life trying to graduate high school with a child and then trying to get to college. And as we all know, the stats on single parents, what are the odds that her partner is going to marry her? And then does that set her child up for a cycle of poverty? And then instead, I would go on to medical school and go on to become a CEO. And certainly there are women that have done it. But again, it's a lot easier if you don't have a baby when you don't want one. And that if we'd only gotten to her sooner with comprehensive sex ed, which the Democrats support and the Republicans do not, with access to confidential reproductive health care, which Democrats support and Republicans do not, and with free access to birth control. And Title 10 is what they usually call it, but it's the Latin numeral X. But we call it Title 10. Pays for any low income person to prevent unplanned pregnancy because it is not in the interest of the government, of taxpayers, of society to have an unplanned pregnancy. In an ideal world, you both have insurance, you both have a home, and you're giving that new child a perfect beginning. Certainly you can do it without, but again, we just want to optimize, and we don't want anybody pregnant that doesn't want to be pregnant. And the United States has one of the highest unplanned pregnancy rates in the world, and particularly amongst adolescents. And it's not because we have wild, crazy sex or more sex. It's because we don't have sex ed and we don't have access to free healthcare. Most civilized countries have a nationalized healthcare system, and that way people can get confidential reproductive healthcare because it's free and nobody checks the paying and we don't have to deal with that. And then they believe in access to free contraception.
Yeah, exactly. And I've always been a firm believer that no matter what political side you're on, you should still be for birth control because we are technically, if you're for birth control, we are really on the same side because pro-life, pro-choice, we're all trying to save lives. And see, if you're on like the pro-life side, it's like, okay, birth control, it even prevents all of that from happening in the first place. Like it doesn't develop into fetus, nothing happens. And so a woman gets to live her life, family educate, and all of us get to be happy. So I urge all of our viewers to really, put out in arms if it's like a political debate, but I think that we should really join sides and fight for what this is. It's like access for all, this gender equality and economic impact. I think it's a really good thing.
Yeah, I would, definitely say that if you're anti-abortion, you better be pro birth control access, pro
Yeah,
no copay, no deductible, pro comprehensive sex ed. Because if without birth control, what happens? Unwanted pregnancy, and then there will be a want for abortion. If you're anti-abortion, you should be number one out there handing out the birth control
right.
rather than anti-birth control. And you should also support low-income women. The states that have the most restrictive abortion laws are also the states that do the least amount to support low-income women and children. So there's the WIC program, there's the SNAP program, there's other federal subsidies. If
Yeah.
you want somebody to choose to continue a pregnancy, then fund that choice. A lot of people end their pregnancy because they can't afford another child. And it's not just the person with the uterus that's affected, but the entire family is affected when you have a child that you don't, or when you have a pregnancy that you don't want, when you have a child that was unexpected, unplanned for, and not a good time to have right now in your family. So it's not just an issue for those of us with uteruses, but anybody who interacts with anybody with a uterus.
Exactly. Seems so almost hypocritical in my mind, where these people don't support the movement that they should be for, in a way, if that makes sense. Okay, on another topic, it seems as if we are projected to go on the path that we are going to be on. So the states that lean more towards the right, it seems as if these policies and legislation bills that could be passed would even start to begin to affect things like telehealth services. And as everyone knows, Pandia Health is a telehealth service. We are an online hormonal healthcare company. And how would you feel if this place that you created, that you said is for your daughters, for your friends, for anyone with a uterus that would want to use our service because it's affordable and convenient and we care, how would you feel if this was affected by new legislation?
The goal of Pendia Health is to make sure, number one, no one runs out of birth control on our watch. And two, more generally, to make women's lives better. And we're really proud that we bring expert birth control and menopause care to those of us with uteri or who were born with uteri, to wherever you have internet and a mailbox. And currently, we can prescribe in 17 states, we can deliver to all 50 states. But if these states start going crazy and saying that birth control is abortion, which it is, that's an issue. And we've also, unfortunately, had to pull out of states that are defining asynchronous telemedicine as not telemedicine, or requiring from their medical boards that in order to qualify to do telemedicine, you have to do it by phone or video. And the research has actually shown that people are more honest on questions are you sure that was your last menstrual period? How many partners have you had? Why didn't you use birth control last time? If it wasn't a video or if it wasn't a phone, because you can hear that judgment in my voice. Where if it's just a computer, like, when was the last time you had a period? How many partners did you have? Yeah, okay, you didn't take your pills, that's fine. We'll just get you some, like no judgment. And that should be the way healthcare is always provided, with no judgment. And we hope that we convey that. But sometimes our faces show shock or appalled or something, or the patient perceives something that isn't there. Whereas in black and white, there's less of that. And so I say leave medicine to the physicians, and don't require a in-person video or phone, because right now we're $30 once a year to see an expert doctor, but we cannot afford that price if you're going to make us do a phone call or video. And there's the hassle of scheduling it at the same time of day. Our customers love our service because it's asynchronous, because you can do it 24/7, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., on the toilet, while in the bathroom, in the library, whatever. And then our doctors, same thing. We don't have to look good. We can just do whatever we want. We could be breastfeeding. We could be picking up our kids, blah, 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 or we can do it 24/7. So don't mandate synchronous telemedicine unless you can show that it has negative results, or you know that this is just horrible care. And with birth control, the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology has said over and over and over, it's safe. It should go over the counter. There's these 20 questions. A patient could administer it themselves. But we've taken that questionnaire that California allows pharmacists to prescribe a birth control and put in a layer of doctor on top of that to make sure it's absolutely safe. So we feel confident in that. And menopause, I just learned, is 1/200th the dose of birth control. And so the risks of birth control is 1/200th. There are other factors because now you're older and you might have hypertension and cardiovascular kind of stuff, but still, it's 1/200th of the dose. So the risk is very low. And so the contraindications are even fewer for menopause replacement therapy systemically. And then locally, if it's just vaginal estrogen, there's very little contraindications there. So again, I don't think that requires synchronous video, phone. Same thing with acne.
Yeah. I think you were saying a piece earlier that made me think of a topic that needs to be brought to light. And because we're talking a little political here, I also urge our viewers to always make sure you fact check when things statements of facts are being said. I've also heard a lot of right-wing statements that just outrightedly say like these birth control propaganda that says it's spewing all this negative stuff in your body. It's like making you break out. It's super unnatural. All these extra things. And of course, also the left side is also liable at these lies and also these pushing of the truth. So it's always really, really good to fact check these statements. And I, and also Dr. Sophia Yen, is on the side of science. And we always like to fact check and research. One of the things that I've heard in the last couple of years about birth control is that it's a synthetic chemical, but all things are chemicals really, but it's more so like a chemical that overrides your entire body and just makes you nauseous and sick all the time. And I heard so many of my peers, likely the same age as I am, that believes this to be fact. I had one time pulling out a birth control packet and they're like, oh, you're on that? Like, it's not good for you. And during that time, I did not really know how to dispel that. And I honestly believed it too. But I'm really glad that we're on the science side now that is allowed to fact check people and really educate people on what is truth and what is myth. On that topic, is there any birth control myth that you might have heard in these last few years or days or months that you could dispel?
Yes. So I'm always shocked whenever it comes up that people believe that if you're on hormonal birth control, that it will affect your future fertility. And so I want to tell you the science shows that if you have 50 people on the birth control pill, 50 people not on the birth control pill, follow them for 20 years, because let's say you started at age 15 and you decided to pop out some babies, well, not 20 years, 15 years, at age 30, right? Then both groups try to have babies. 10% of each group are going to have a hard time getting pregnant. It's not because the birth control did something here and the people who are not on birth control, something random happened. It's just 10% of everybody will have a hard time getting pregnant, mainly because of polycystic ovarian syndrome. So again, 1 in 10 people who are born with a uterus will get polycystic ovarian syndrome, possibly more as we have an increase in obesity, because obesity causes more of it. And over time, the freshman 10, and then just life, you gain weight. So then more increase of polycystic ovarian syndrome. And the reason why you can't get pregnant, or it's harder, is the problem polycystic ovarian syndrome is every month a whole bunch of eggs try to grow, and then whoever gets the most estrogen pops out. And in polycystic ovarian syndrome, the eggs kind of grow, but then nothing pops out. And because there's no pop out, there isn't a fall in the hormones. Pop eggs, you can't make babies. So that is not the birth control making it difficult for 10% women to get pregnant. It's actually just life making it for 10%. And then people are like, well, how long does it take to wash out of my body? Well, On the birth control pill, you can see I skip the last week and go to the next time every single time so I don't have to bleed every week. But by day 2 or 3 on your sugar pill is usually when most people bleed. And why? Because the hormones fell and they're out of your body. If you want to be anal retentive biochemistry person, by 2 or 3 half-lives, it's totally out of your body. So by 2 weeks, it's definitely out of your body. And then lastly, I gave a talk to a bunch of fertility experts. And I was like, why am I giving a talk about birth control pills to a bunch of fertility experts? So again, back to PCOS, they actually use the birth control pill to normalize the hormones of PCOS people. Because PCOS people, their hormones are all whack and it's preventing the eggs from popping out and it's too much man hormone, etc. And so they normalize it with the birth control pill. And when you come off the birth control pill, the day 2 or 3, and you bleed, and then you build back up again for 2 weeks, that is the most fertile you will ever be. And people like who have PCOS, they hear from us doctors, hey, you're gonna have a hard time getting pregnant. Like, okay, well, I'll come off the pill and I'll let it rinse out of my body. I'll give it a couple months, to normalize before I make a baby. When you come off of this and you bleed, and then 2 weeks it builds up, you want to go the first cycle after. And so fertility experts are using birth control. Birth control, my joke is, makes you infertile while you're taking it, because that's why you're taking it. But as soon as you come off 2 or 3 days, you bleed. So it's out of your body, and it's definitely out of your body in 1 or 2 weeks.
Wow, that's like such a big myth. Like I've heard so many people like, you can't get pregnant if you're on that for like longer than 5 years, like, wow. And like fertility doctors use it. I didn't even know that. I'm so honest when I say I learn like such a new thing every time I'm on live with you. Okay, time is almost up, so I'm going to flip it around back to our viewers. If there's any questions at all that you want to ask Dr. Yen or I, then please drop it down in the comments. Okay, while they are potentially writing that question, I have a few things to say to wrap up this live. I know that political election year can be very anxiety-inducing and very overwhelming for a lot of people because there's just so much information out there. However, a very quick resource that is a very enlightening one to know who to vote for so that you can protect birth control. There's actually a progressive voter guide. And if you just search a progressive voter guide, it'll just pop up. And this is not me urging you to vote progressive or anything by means at all, but it just tends that more progressive candidates tend to vote for the side of birth control. So whatever you do, just protect birth control and you can do whatever you want. And then I see that you also did a little resource down there. Did you want to talk about that one, Dr. Yen?
Yeah, so we partnered with turnup.us, whose goal is to get out the vote in high school seniors and college students. And the petition, if you go there, if you're applying to college, applying to grad school, applying to anywhere, it's a petition that goes to the colleges of presidents of colleges in anti-abortion states, as well as the governors of all those states, saying, I'm not applying to your college unless you respect my bodily autonomy. And unfortunately, the stat is 1 in 4 of those born with uteri will be sexually assaulted in college. And my thing is, if I get sexually assaulted, more likely my daughters, God forbid, no, they should be able to decide what happens to their bodies. And so there are states where, let's say it's illegal in that state, you leave that state, you go to California, get your business taken care of, you come back, they can arrest you at the border if they want to. And then not only have you been sexually assaulted, raped, but now you are going to be arrested for taking care of what happened in your body to prevent a rapist baby. So know that these kinds of things exist. Know that your elected officials control these kinds of laws. Know that the ERA has been passed, and all we need is enough votes in the House to extend the deadline. And we just need 3 Republican votes. So if you can find 3 Republicans that you can pressure to sign, let the ERA pass. It's been passed, but it has to be like put into the archivist, whatever. But extend the deadline. Extend the deadline of the ERA. Know that one party supports the ERA and the other party, we have to twist them to get them to support it. And then also know the Supreme Court is really conservative and anti-women, it feels like right now. And if the Democrats were to win the presidency, the Senate, and the House, then they could balance and add members to the Supreme Court. So then we could balance. These are lifetime people on the Supreme Court. They only leave if they want to leave. And so we need to balance these anti-women groups with people that, will stand for reproductive rights, abortion rights, birth control, comprehensive sex ed, menopause, women working, women having the right to vote.
I know, and so many oftentimes it's like these people that hold such immense seats of power, they're like a bit out of touch with womanhood. They're like 90-year-old men who don't know what it is like to be a female.
Well, so they're not 90, they're young. They're like 50 or 60. So they have another 20, 30 years to serve on that court. If they were 90, I might be okay with it. Only because there's not going to be there much longer. But I am so sad for everybody living now that you have fewer rights than when I grew up. That's not fair.
That's such a sad statement, and it should scare you to convince those people to
vote, get everyone you know to vote, and those who are anti-abortion, anti-women, maybe encourage them not to vote, but everybody else vote. Those who support rights vote.
Okay, so Rose has a question. Isn't the fact that 1 in 10 people who have polycystic disease increase the odds of having difficulty getting pregnant and mean they are more apt to need drugs and even IVF to bear children? What would the impact of making IVF illegal?
Yes. So as you know, the Alabama has gone insane, and then they quickly retracted it. But IVF should definitely not be illegal, and anyone who believes it should be out of office. Feel free to vote all the people who are anti-IVF out of office, because that's definitely anti-life in my mind.
I know.
And yes, people with PCOS actually don't usually necessarily need IVF. They just need to stimulate their ovary to pop out that egg. And so they're making the egg, it just won't come out. So, well, you're right. They may need egg extraction, and then they have to do the IVF. When I think of IVF, I wasn't thinking in the head. So yes, PCOS may need IVF, but usually you can do it with birth control plus metformin plus an egg stimulation situation. So may not need IVF, may just need birth control, metformin, and sometimes Clomid to stimulate some eggs, but sometimes may need IVF. But absolutely, there's just so many reasons that birth control should not be illegal. I bet 80-90% of this country does not believe birth control should be illegal. It's just this radical fraction that has taken over our government because they're politically active, because they vote. I like to say Democrats get angry and apathetic. They're like, oh, so screwed, I'm not going to vote, I give up, there's no hope. And the Republicans get angry and active. Yeah. Active rage, and so the Democrats need to be active rage or all just fear. My thing is, somebody said, what wouldn't you donate? What wouldn't you do to make sure we don't have T-Rump, as I like to call him, in office again? And I was like, oh yeah, I need to do everything. I need to vote. I need to donate. I need to get out everybody to vote that's out there, because wake up, people. If you don't vote, who will be in office? Don't say I can't vote for Biden. You're not if you can't vote for Biden, you're at least voting against what the other option is. And the other option is anti-woman, anti-civil rights, anti-reproductive rights, anti-LGBTQ. He's homophobic, Islamophobic, anything that he shouldn't be, he is.
Exactly. Woo! That was a powerful statement to end this live. Again, thank you so much, Dr. Sophia Yen, for joining me today to talk about this very pressing issue. And I hope you guys all learned a little something. I certainly did. And please, 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 I urge you to please check out the resource that Dr. Yen shared, turnup.us. And also go check out some progressive guides so you know how to vote to protect birth control. All right. Thank you so much. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Thanks, Brianne.
Bye.